We have heavy hearts tonight here at NBC4, as we are sure many of you as well.
Yeah, our long-time colleague Mike Bowersock, former anchor and reporter here, died over the weekend after a bad fall. It's been really tough for all of us to take. Mike and I have been talking about what a storyteller he was. He would stop by your desk, and my favorite Mike Bowersock story, he told me, you probably heard this, about an aunt and uncle in their 80s, his great aunt and uncle, who wanted to see Cedar Point. They'd never seen it, so they decided they would go and just get on that train that took them all around the park because they weren't strong enough to walk through the park. And they accidentally got on a roller coaster.
And of course,
the way he told that story.
And Mike's story lasted a lot longer than your version.
Yeah, his
was
like
much
a
more
10-minute version.
Right?
Yeah, he always though would come to your desk and say, "You got a minute?" And you knew it was coming.
You needed more than a minute.
Yeah, you needed more than a minute, because if nothing else, Mike Bowersock knew how to tell a story.
This is the 30th Street train station for Amtrak. And about 24 hours ago, it became the first stop out of the hospital for the injured and the traumatized.
Mike Bowersock had a gift with words and a love for a good story.
This was one of the biggest stories of the 1980s. And in 2014, it's still going on.
He first came to work here in 1989, spent time in Detroit, but came back to us more than a decade ago.
2 visits to Ohio this weekend by this candidate. 2 visits to Ohio last weekend by another candidate. Get used to it. There's still 59 days left until the election.
His stories could drip with sarcasm and wit. He could spin a yarn. And in the newsroom, you couldn't spend much time with Mike Bowersock without finding something to laugh about.
It's working around the clock.
Mike did work around the clock, always hunting for the next interesting story to tell, the next place to take us.
You're a base that is so important to what is happening on the southeast side of Afghanistan.
It was fitting that when he left Channel 4, Mike went to work for the Ohio National Guard as a public affairs officer. He had loved to share their stories.
High in the mountains, separating Pakistan from Afghanistan, it is where we find this unit of the Ohio National Guard.
In his final story at NBC4, Mike told us about a Ross County man who hit the lottery and months later lost both his wife and son to unexpected death.
I'd give it back in a heartbeat.
Mike told me he was so proud of that story. He said, "You know, life can change in an instant." Yes, it can, Mike. And sometimes it leaves us with heavy hearts. Our thoughts and prayers are with our dear friend and his loving family.